Humans are considered the highest form of evolution, the rulers of nature, and the primary masters of the planet Earth. These titles were once attributed to us by philosophers, biologists, scientists, and even psychologists. But where did such confidence come from? Yes, humans are larger and stronger than a vast number of living beings, but we can't run like cheetahs. We're not destined to swim as fast as dolphins, and we're smaller than whales. Some may argue that humans are social creatures, but imagine a scenario where a group of people hunts wolves. The cornered beast will undoubtedly fall under the pressure of a well-organized group. However, throw an ordinary unarmed person into a dense forest far from civilization, and they can also be cornered and torn apart by a similarly organized pack. This is despite the fact that humans haven't had dense hair cover for thousands of years and must wear clothes and at least occasionally be near a heat source to sustain life. Speaking in modern terms, it's challenging to imagine that even 1 out of 1,000 city dwellers could survive in the wild for a month without any help, starting a fire, constructing shelters and tools, and successfully hunting for food. Wild animals, on the other hand, haven't lost their survival skills over millions of years. So what makes us the masters of the planet? Psychologists have long provided an answer to this question: the presence of human free will. Each of us can probably give our own definition of free will. Most of you would say it's the ability to independently control your actions and make decisions based on your own motivations and desires. In general, you would be right. From a scientific point of view, psychologists define free will as the ability of a person to make choices regardless of circumstances. In other words, during a fire, you wouldn't just act based on self-preservation instinct, but also be able to help your property or others affected. Additionally, as a human, you can make long-term decisions unaffected by the present. For example, where to go on vacation in 6 months or what profession to pursue in 10 years. And now we've delineated the boundaries between human free will and animal instincts. But what if we are indeed devoid of our individuality? What if such a significant trait as free will is merely a byproduct of evolution, and in reality we are all just primal biomass with a set of impulses? It may sound hurtful, but it was precisely such a theory that scientists like Benjamin Libet decided to confirm with his experiment, the results of which still stir society, and many contemporary colleagues are trying to refute. Let's dive into this famous study together. The renowned experiment was conducted in 1983, where participants were tasked with making a finger movement or wrist bend when they felt the urge to do so. During the experiment, the movement and brain activity of the participants were recorded using special equipment. The results revealed that a potential for readiness first appears in the motor centers of the brain's cortex, and only about 350 milliseconds later does the conscious desire to move the finger arise. Approximately 100 milliseconds after that, electromyography records a signal from the hand muscle. Thus, it turns out that the brain precedes consciousness by about 500 milliseconds. In other words, Libet demonstrated that desire arises after an automatic reaction, essentially proving desires as a programmed consequence of our actions. For example, the desire to go to the bathroom arises after your urinary organs send a signal to the brain about their intention to empty independently of you. In the same series of experiments, Benjamin Libet conducted another study where participants were asked to plan an action for a specific moment, but not to carry it out. In these cases, the potential for readiness was still recorded, indicating that the action was planned but not executed. Consequently, Libet concluded that human free will exists only after the conscious awareness of the desire within the 100 millisecond window, during which a person can impose a veto on the impulse to act. The conducted experiment shocked the public, causing people to start thinking, are we really nobody but prisoners of our own bodies? Are we just a set of organs that can control us and prompt us to desire what our bodies truly want? Because in this case, any action can be attributed to unconscious impulses. And I didn't want to do this. My body decided for me. It sounds horrifying, doesn't it? Any justice system loses its viability, and the whole world is at risk of plunging into lawlessness under the banner of unconsciousness. And it might have stayed that way, but fortunately, the uproar subsided quickly. However, Libet himself faced significant criticism from his colleagues. Firstly, many scientists accused him of excessive hype surrounding his persona, sparked by the inaccurately conducted experiment. Supposedly, the equipment used for the research was extremely outdated, and such short impulses and intervals could simply be interferences. Additionally, the participation of the subjects themselves also cast doubt on the truthfulness of the results. After all, the participants bore some level of responsibility, so dismissing the human factor entirely was also not viable. viable. American philosopher and cognitive scientist Alden Nett was not in agreement with the definition of free will established in the experiment, and consequently with the conclusions drawn there. Nett defines free will as the ability of a person to make decisions according to specific circumstances. He doesn't deny that such freedom is not absolute, but he asserts that it endows a person with the ability to take responsibility for their actions. So who turned out to be right in the end? Is the concept of free will really a myth of humanity? In 2008, neuroscientists Hayes and O'Neill confirmed the results of the research. The main difference between the scientists' experiments and those of 1983 was the use of state-of-the-art equipment. They used functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, to record the results, and instead of hand movements, the participants were asked to press buttons. The participants monitored moving objects on a screen, and the fMRI instantly recorded the movement of their eyes. When their gaze direction changed, the temporal lobe of the brain responsible for implementing decisions was activated. However, the basal ganglia and frontal lobe, responsible for decision-making, were activated even before the participants changed their gaze direction. In conclusion, the experiment, using precise modern equipment, proved that the brain precedes consciousness. At this point, one might feel inclined to become a total fatalist, seeing their life as programmed impulses of their own body. However, psychologists came to the rescue. The essence of all these experiments fundamentally contradicts the very principle of free will. Consider this: the participants are already within strictly controlled conditions where multiple factors exert pressure on them. Moreover, the participants have no freedom in choosing the process of action. Their role in the experiment is strictly controlled and regulated. Participants were not tasked with doing anything. Rather, they were given narrow rules to follow. Press this button with this hand, for instance. Given all these conditions, the participants' maximum freedom of action was the ability to fulfill their desire to press or not press the coveted button. Free will ended for them the moment they decided to participate in the experiment for whatever reasons. This was their own decision. Participants could have stayed home or gone to the movies, but instead they were interested in research. Therefore, the experiments conducted by Libet and later by his followers are not considered reliable evidence of the complete absence of free will. The experiments conducted by scientists were confined to narrow boundaries, which ultimately led to their invalidity in the broader sense. Of course, many psychologists and philosophers currently write extensive treatises on the idea that humans are just a set of impulses and we invented free will for ourselves. However, all this is nothing more than speculation without evidence. Even in today's world, there is no way to measure or calculate something that cannot be influenced. Although, who knows, perhaps similar research is being conducted somewhere right now. We are all global subjects in a large cage with plenty of observation cameras, daily recording every decision and action we make. Until we meet again, friends.